Hi, and this is my first movie, I guess, on, no, well, video. Movie is a stretch. Anyways, it's a book review, kind of, on The Merchant of Venice. This is Acts 1 through 3. There's Act 1. Okay, Shakespeare is confusing at 2 in the morning. It's me. So, it's Act 1, Scene 1 through 3 that I'm doing right now. And so it starts with Antonio complaining to his friends that sadness has overtaken his life and he doesn't know what to do about it. Stop sitting on my pillow. And so he doesn't know how to explain this sadness that's taken over his life. His friends suggest that it's due to his commercial investments, because he's invested all his savings and stuff into ships that he's sending across seas, because Antonio is the merchant of Venice. And so Antonio assures his friends that his business ventures don't depend on the safe passage of any one ship. Then his friends say he must be in love, and Antonio says that cannot be it. So as they're walking along, they run into Bassanio and Gratiano, two friends of his. Well, Lorenzo's there too, but we don't see much of Lorenzo in this. So his first two friends leave, because I can't remember their names and I had to return the book for English class. So they leave, and they leave, leaving him with Gratiano and Bassanio. When Gratiano notices Antonio's unhappiness, suggests he worries too much about his business. And then he says he's just destined to be a sad person, kind of thing going on. Then he goes into the second kind of thing that's going on in the story, where Bassanio he tells Antonio about Portia, this rich heiress who Bassanio wants to marry. However, Bassanio needs to borrow money from Antonio, and Antonio doesn't have the money at the moment because, it's all in the ships. And Bassanio continuously borrows money from Antonio, so they have to go somewhere else. Act 1, Scene 2 is at Belmont, about Portia, the lady that Bassanio wants to marry. And in Scene 2, Portia's complaining to Nerissa. Nerissa is her lady-in-waiting, and she's complaining that she's, in her words, weary of the world because, that's not her words, but she's weary of the world because her dead father has put on this kind of puzzle thing or game that decides who she will marry. So the game thing is, there's 3 chests, one of gold, one of silver, and one of lead. And the correct chest contains Portia's portrait, and the man who guesses correctly will win her hand in marriage. But those who guess incorrectly must swear never to marry anyone else or try to marry anyone else ever again. Nerissa lists the suitors who have come, and there's a lot of them, and Portia criticizes their shortcomings, you might want to call them, and each of these suitors attempt to guess for fear of the penalty for guessing wrong. The fact relieves Portia, and both she and Nerissa remember Bassanio, who had visited once before, as the suitor most deserving and worthy of praise. A servant enters and says that the Prince of Morocco will arrive soon, and Portia is not happy to hear this. So, that is Act 1 and Act 1, Scene 1 and 2. Moving on to Act 3. Act 3 has to do with Shylock. He's the Jewish moneylender in this, and he agrees to loan Bassanio 3,000 ducats for a term of 3 months. Bassanio assures Shylock that Antonio will guarantee the loan, but Shylock is doubtful because all his wealth is invested in overseas things. In the end, though, Shylock decides that Antonio's guarantee of the loan will be sufficient assurance and speaks to assurance, and when Antonio arrives, Shylock, in an aside, confesses an aside. I'm positive most of you probably know what an aside is from English class. When one speaks to the audience, or rather to himself as not to the other characters. And in Shylock's aside, he confesses his hatred, like pure unadulterated hatred, for Antonio. This book is kind of like a battle between Christians and Jewish and a whole other sort of whacked out shit. Excuse my language. And mostly Shylock hates Antonio because, 1, Antonio's a Christian, 2, he lends out money without having people having to, like, pay him back, or with exorbitant interest rates. He's also put off by it because Antonio frequently denounces him in public, as in, like, he just puts out horrible things about Shylock. So, yeah, that's part of it. Antonio makes it clear to Shylock that he is not in the habit of borrowing money, but has decided to make the exception on behalf of his friend Bassanio. And so, the conversation leads to a business usury which Shylock defends as a way to thrive. As he calculates the interest on Bassanio's loan, Shylock recalls Antonio cursing at him, calling him a misbeliever, cutthroat dog, and spit upon Jewish gabardine, which is Act 1, Scene 3, lines 107 through 108. Antonio says that he's likely to do so again, and insists that Shylock lend him the money as an enemy. Such an arrangement, Antonio claims, will make it easier for Shylock to exact an harsh penalty if the loan is not repaid. So, assuring that he means to pay the money back, Shylock offers to make the loan without interest. Instead, he suggests, seemingly, that if the money is not returned to him, that Antonio need give him a pound of his own flesh closest to his heart. Bassanio warns Antonio not to get into this kind of an agreement, but Antonio assures him that he will have no trouble repaying the debt. So, because he's put all his money and bets on his ships that are out that we've already gone over in the trade. So, Shylock attempts to dismiss Bassanio's suspicions, asking what profit he stands to make by procuring a pound of Antonio's flesh. So, they return to the notary's office to sign the bond, with Antonio's remarks on Shylock's newfound generosity that... Okay, wait. The Hebrew will turn Christian, he grows kind. Act 1, Scene 3, line 174. Bassanio remains suspicious of the agreement, but Antonio reminds him that the ships will arrive within the next 2 months. So, Shylock is, as we've gone over, because we're going over the characters now that have been introduced, since all the major characters have been introduced. Most of the major characters have been introduced, that is. And, okay, so we have Shylock, who is the Jewish moneylender. He's very, we might want to say, we could even go as far to say obsessed with his money, which comes out later in the story. We have Antonio, who's kind of cavalier about his money, and Bassanio, who has no money, but he needs money to go marry Portia, because Portia who is now a rich heiress, who is stuck in a bind about this thing with the games with her dad. Her dead dad, we might add. So that's Act 1, Scene 1 through 3. I'll have the other scenes and acts up later. Well, there's no more acts in Scene 1, so that was purely Act 1. Okay, bye.